Hi, welcome to my channel. Let's start the video. Working at a construction company for 7 years after graduating from college, I got used to the company I joined as a new grad, and my salary has gone up to a decent amount. I just proposed to my girlfriend of 5 years, Emily. She didn't hesitate to say okay, and we thought a fun life was starting for us. Just when I thought that right before Christmas, during the busiest time, I was suddenly called by my boss, James. From his expression, it was clear it wasn't good news. What on earth could it be? Feeling a bad premonition, I followed him to a meeting room. Entering the room, what do you know, both the CEO and the vice president were there. Suddenly, I felt like I was in a position to be judged. The CEO, with a stern face, said, "Take a seat." As I sat down, sweat broke out on my forehead. What have I done? The vice president, sitting next to the CEO, started explaining to me in a matter-of-fact tone. Let's get straight to the point. It turns out that the condo building you are in charge of has been found to have fake fireproof resistance. The developer is furious and future contracts might be voided. What have you done? You're prepared for the consequences, right? Huh? I had no idea what he was talking about. I reported that project to James and followed all the procedures correctly. I responded on the spot, "Excuse me. I'm suddenly being told this and don't understand the circumstances. Could you allow me to verify this on my end?" Anyway, I was desperate. "Then what are you taking your sweet time for? We've already been told by our client to not keep the person who made this mistake. You'll be given time to use up your paid leave, and that's that." All of that was news to me. Besides, James showed no signs of defending me, even though I've worked with him for years. Stunned, I left the room and headed to my desk. Who could have done it? My personal belongings were packed in a cardboard box on my desk. A member from HR awkwardly approached me. "We'll send you the resignation paperwork by mail. Please fill it out and mail it back. You can leave early for today." I had been working cheerfully with my colleagues just the previous day, but they whispered among themselves as they looked at me. It was clear they had given up on me. Thus, I was kicked out of the company. I had worked for 7 years holding a single cardboard box. It felt like scenes from the Lehman shock. I chuckled bitterly as I started the car engine. Finally, when I got home, the calm, usual me returned. Upon reflecting, the construction of that condo was led by the CEO's heir, Chris, and I wasn't even the leader. James must have known that I was framed. I was held responsible for the fake fireproof resistance by upper management. I finally understood. However, even if I realized the truth, it would be difficult for me, who isn't the leader, to gather documents. Now, probably all the documents from that time are managed by Chris and James. At this rate, I won't be able to gather evidence to file a lawsuit. I couldn't help but mutter to myself, "What is this situation?" It's a complete deadlock. Frustration welled up inside me. I lay on the floor and cried continuously. After crying all night, I faced the reality of my future life. First, I had to explain the situation properly to Emily. I called her to a coffee shop and reported the whole story properly. In order to make sure she wouldn't worry, I deliberately told her in a cheerful manner, "I'll have to find a new job now, but I'll work hard, so don't worry. I hope you can support me too." As soon as I said that, I could tell the atmosphere froze. She couldn't hide her agitation and snapped back at me in an irritated tone. "What are you saying? How could I possibly marry someone without a job? You shouldn't have proposed." After throwing those words at me, she quickly got up and left. The double shock of being fired and a broken engagement had me bedridden for days. I couldn't trust or believe in anyone anymore. I became reckless, living carelessly. My life turned upside down, spending my nights wandering and drinking. Abandoned by Emily, who was my support, I had no motivation to job hunt. I spent my days sitting alone on the riverbank. Then one day, as I was zoning out by the riverbank with my coffee, a soccer ball suddenly grazed over my head. The ball rolled to a stop right beside me. "Excuse me, Could you please get the ball for us?" Looking up, I saw two boys and a woman, presumably their mother, waving at me. I nodded with a smile and threw the ball back to them. The boys thanked me and ran back to their soccer game. Then the woman approached me and said, "You're always here, aren't you?" "Are you a parent of one of the soccer team members?" She seemed to have mistaken me for one of the parents. I honestly told her I was just hanging out, but she continued talking. She was a very friendly woman named Sarah. Assuming I was a mom friend, she casually sat beside me and started chatting. Initially, I found it bothersome, but having not spoken to anyone all day for a while, I gradually began to enjoy our conversation. Sarah was a very energetic woman. Talking to her, I felt energized. I inadvertently vented about my daily frustrations and truths, and we talked about various things. Eventually, I even shared the story of my firing, and she listened with empathy. She was angry on my behalf, yet trying to keep the mood light, and made me laugh. After sharing everything, I felt a bit relieved. "William, your face looks like you are crying," she panicked and pointed out. To my surprise, I found myself laughing through tears. In these last few days, stress had caused me insomnia, and I had lost a significant amount of weight. Feeling like I had finally managed to release some stress, I thanked her repeatedly. Curious, she suddenly asked, "What's the name of that terrible company?" Why would she ask me that? While wondering, I honestly told her the company's name. She looked shocked. "I work in security at that terrible company." I was astonished. Such a coincidence. Realizing our ground, she suddenly became serious and said, "I might be able to find evidence that you were set up." She switched to work mode and started asking me for detailed information about the problematic project, including dates, locations, and circumstances. I told her everything I knew. She took notes on everything and said, gripping my hands tightly with a smile, "I'll do my best to find the evidence, William. Let's fight to have your bosses retract the firing." I was truly surprised, though I was feeling guilty, and said to her, "I can't ask someone I've just met to do such a thing. You could end up getting fired yourself. Besides, I don't care anymore." To my listless reply, she said, "That's not a good way to think." She seriously lectured me as if scolding a child, tears welling up in her eyes while she pleaded earnestly. Seeing her like that made me feel timid, especially since even Emily, who had been with me for 5 years, had easily abandoned me. Then Sarah began to share her past with tears. Actually, I was once framed by my company too, and to make matters worse, the colleague who framed me was having an affair with my husband. I was perfectly set up by the two of them and ended up as a single mother, she confessed. I was speechless with surprise. I had thought I was the most unfortunate person in the world, but she had gone through much more hardship. I felt ashamed of my own self-pity. She encouraged me further. "I can't see your situation as someone else's problem. You and I are the same." After I left the company, I realized I had been framed and had no recourse. That's why I took a job in security, so I could be in a position to help someone else. "You still have a chance, William. Will you trust me and fight this unreasonable reality together?" As I listened to her, tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I had thought if I just endured, if I just turned a blind eye, I could bear it. But accepting that unjust reality meant my future life was doomed to defeat. I made up my mind and shared my feelings with her. "Sarah, well, I can't accept the firing. I'll fight the company thoroughly. I want to prove the wrongdoing, even if it's a long shot, so I can live my life with confidence. Could you lend me your strength?" Overwhelmed with emotion, I begged desperately. Sarah nodded and said, "Yes, let's reveal who's truly responsible for this fireproof resistance fraud. We'll show your bosses and restore your honor." We shook hands firmly. A week had passed since meeting Sarah and her children on the riverbank. She really did move on my behalf incredibly. She found a video of James and his colleagues secretly talking in a meeting room where James was caught on audio forcing a licensed architect to cut costs in the design. It seemed he planned to pocket the skimmed construction funds himself. They probably thought that if it was a case involving Chris, the CEO's son, internal checks would be lax. Armed with irrefutable evidence, I appealed directly to the CEO. Thanks to Sarah's help, I could present numerous pieces of evidence with accurate information. The CEO was taken aback. He was unaware that the fireproof resistance fraud condo was Chris's project. He deeply apologized to me. My son probably knew it was his project and didn't come forward with the truth. I'll give him a stern warning. I am terribly sorry for the significant damage to your reputation. Here's what we'll do, and he provided substantial support for my reinstatement. Later, James was disciplined at an internal meeting and demoted to a regional office. About Chris, he got a severe reprimand from his father. Starting over as an entry-level employee was decided. And as for me, thank you very much. Not at all. Hearing that your firing was canceled made me really happy. Since then, I started going out with Sarah's family, initially as a thank you dinner. But as they learned I played soccer in my college days, I began giving lessons to her children by the river, deepening our relationship. Seeing Sarah's always smiling face gives me strength during tough times. She went all out to help me, and I hope to gradually close the distance between us, entertaining such thoughts.